We just talked about the building.
Historical Society book with your name on it. It was named. Oh, did you get it? Where'd it go?
I didn't get it. Can't even find it. It's always in it.
I believe your name is not.
Yeah, I hope so.
Was that kind of good?
Yeah.
John,
My wife loves reading.
he does a good job on that stuff.
He does.
Have you got his books yet? We got it. We got it.
I need to, but I
Got
never done.
I'm purple here. Thank God.
I was trying to work on that.
I sat here and I saw that light. People turn cold. Late like Saturday morning, it's supposed to be cold. Yeah, it's supposed to be the 30s. Oh, right down to freezing.
Last time my mom and I worked on it,
Shit always been raining. Everybody in the world, in my neighborhood, knows they are today.
I couldn't make that work today.
Well, if you get to, I might be able to get to it early in the morning. Well, I'll take you both. I got this.
Yeah, I used to go.
Sometimes I do, most time I'm happy to run too, but I want to dry off. Yeah, sure. Take the thing and clean it up.
All right, I have 6 o'clock. We'd like to get started tonight. If we could, our second night budget hearing. Our anticipated agenda tonight is to start out with the sheriff's budget and items that he has to do with. Is that correct, Mayor? And then go into the school. After
Yeah,
that.
that's what I have on the agenda.
And then, depending on how much time we have when we get through, we may try to wade through some more of this. I don't think we'll get through tonight, but we might. And we always have next Monday night to go if we don't get through. So, I assume, Mayor, you're going to start on page 18.
They have a question.
I'm going to turn it over to the sheriff to present his vote.
Okay. I think that should start on page 18. Start with courtroom security and then get into public safety and the sheriff's department. Or did we cover courtroom security adequately the other night?
I'll let him go.
Okay.
If there's any questions.
And I wipe down all the tables, all the chairs. There's Clorox wipes up here if you need them. Don't know what more we can do other than not kiss each other. All right, Sheriff, you're up.
On the courtroom security, the only thing, it's pretty much the same as it was last year. The cameras are not in there this year. You only paid that $20,000 last year for the camera system. But other than that, it's pretty much the same, other than 2.5% raise in there. Any questions on that?
Any questions for the sheriff on the courtroom security part of the budget?
We're all got 3.5 raises.
The whole department's getting a 2.5 increase.
Mayor, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, Sheriff, you're going into the 6,400 account for public safety and the sheriff's department. Still on page 18.
You're looking over everything that we got here. Everything's basically the same as it was last year, like the 2.5 request. All the extra things I put in there for this year is $60,000 for radio equipment and bulletproof vests. The radios that we put in there are the car radios, where we can go ahead and go to digital. Right now, we're still doing UHF, VHF simulcast. We just installed it, got it up going a few months ago. It's working real well. 911 spent $600,000 putting a new tower up on Morrison Street and all the equipment in it, and we also put the equipment on Pumpkin Hill. Both of those are up and going. And to go digital, right now, Macon County, FFPD is digital, Wilson, Sumner, and all of them are getting ready to switch over here shortly. And we'll be able to talk to any of them. The only people we'll be able to talk to is just ourselves. And that's one of the main reasons we're going digital. Every 5 years, our vest, we have to replace them every 5 years. The shelf life, the wear life on them is 5 years. After 5 years, we're going to replace them. And they're going to be up toward the end of the year to replace those. Other than that, I don't see any other increases I've got for anything. There's one thing I did leave out. I said something Dr. Side put us a few minutes ago. I want to put $5,000 in there to cover SROs, their SRO budget. So we keep them covered, pay them, but I don't have anybody extra.
Where would that go? What line item would that go in?
We had talked about this last year, we didn't have it in there. It got slipped my mind again, so I think we need to put that in there. It's, let me see.
So that's on 54-110, 451 under SRO?
Yes,
Or is that under 524 SRO? Okay, I see. So you're going to increase that from, you increased it from 65 to 70. So you want to increase it to 75?
yeah, 75, make sure we got enough to cover for somebody to fill in wherever we got somebody out.
Now, Mayor, are we correct in thinking that we may be able to use some of the state grant funds for the purchase of these bulletproof vests and some of these radios and stuff?
I believe so. There's money included in there for emergency services, for one-time expenditures, can be used for salaries, anything like that. So I think it'll qualify.
So that would make a huge difference on the budget if we're able to use those funds for those things. But we still need to do it, we need to have it in here budgeted, we can, we'll bring that up as revenue going to these type things. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else have any questions, Sheriff? Mr. Butler?
With the stoppage of work at Ford, tell me about the cars that were ordered this year and how that's going to affect the budget as far as the figured in the estimate at the end of the year. My understanding we're not going to receive those until next year.
Well, we've already done a purchase order on those vehicles, and they're locked in at the price that Ford does. I know FFPD just got some cars this week, and they're starting to bring some in now. So hopefully within the next 30 days, we're hoping we'll get those vehicles. But even, I talked to Amy about the other day, even if it does carry over into next year's budget, we already got the PO and got the price locked in.
Mr. Ford?
I have a question. In the second part of the page on 18 in the sheriff's department, I'm seeing $82,000 there, increase for level officer. That says a longevity increase. Did they get the longevity increase plus the 2.5? You just said all of them.
That's the scale you gave us the other year.
What's that?
It's the scale that you gave that they approved
Yeah.
a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's a longevity, whenever they're there for 2 years, they get an increase, every 5 years they get
Now,
an
like
increase.
the question, did they get the 2.5 in this year?
Yeah.
Man.
They do. Any other questions?
What about the old one, that's what we do with it?
Really, there's nothing we can do with them. We use them in training, and, we have gave them away, donated them, but most everybody now has, everybody's got vests now. Back years ago, we used to go around, Metro National would donate their vest to us. That was our first vest we ever got. Now everybody's got vests, it's pretty much a standard.
Can they be sold, sir?
No, they're obsolete, they're wore out, they're sweated, they're dual use, molded. You wear something like that for 5 years, sweating in it.
I'm sure.
There really is nothing you can do to them.
Just on the wall, track.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
You know what they use on.
Going back to my comment, Mike, I thought that's what the longevity wage was for, not come back and give the 2.5 on top of that. You've got 11 people here that need $2,000. We were looking at that is a monstrous wage. I can't support that. I won't support it.
That was part of their package when they were hired us.
Yeah, when you hire it on, you start out at a base amount. After you go through training, you go to another amount. After 2 years, you go to another amount. And then after 5 years, you go to another amount.
That's what I thought that before. If you say you go around and get 2.5%, don't buy that.
You need it.
I can't support that.
So you're saying that you're never, ever going to increase their pay?
I'm just saying, we set it up last year that this is the way it would be from then on, and here we are tonight, with another 2.5 on top of that.
For everybody, across the board and all?
That's right.
So if you don't
Why
do,
do we even set up longevity if we're going to have to do this?
okay, what if somebody is not ready for the longevities, not qualified for it, they're not getting anything?
That's why they're building the way up.
See
You're
what,
doubling up on it.
see what, take the 2.5 off and move the longevity, and just keep the ones that they got for the longevity? Is that what you?
To help out a little bit more, it's not 82,000, it's actually 38,000. That's the only range. You're looking at the estimated what we spend this year.
I can't hardly hear you.
He hasn't had a full force this year, so you're looking at the wrong column. It's only a 38,000 increase. It's not 82.
Well, I'm sitting right there on the second line with the deputies.
You're
The
looking at the
508 and
estimated column.
500 increase.
Yes, sir, you're looking at the estimated expense for this year. You need to look at what was budgeted for it, which was the 5,052. Or 552, excuse me.
552,000 was budgeted in this year. He hasn't had a full staff of officers. So what we're saying is it's not $82,000 increase, it's a $38,000 increase.
508's wrong.
No, 508 because he hasn't had as many officers as was budgeted. That's accurate.
It don't show that.
It doesn't stop you
It's an estimate.
estimating for the rest of this budget year. That's what that column is.
That's
You
like right
want to
now.
know what, you got 2018, 2019 budget in the first column. You got what was budgeted in this year in the second column. You've got what we're estimating that we're going to wind up this budget to the next budget, you don't take the estimated cost, you
I see
take
what you're saying.
the second time.
The budget itself.
Right. But, you know, yes,
The longevity was just regular comparable to what surrounding counties, is that correct?
that was the reason behind it, and that's the way most counties have that in the budget, or that's the way their pay scale works, much like the school system. Pay scale used to be that the longer years you work, the more money you make, no matter what your degree is. So it's that approach. But if you're not giving them the increase, then you're not giving them a raise, because they're getting a longevity increase if they qualify for it, regardless. At least in my mind, if you're giving everyone this increase and you don't give it to the policeman, then they're not getting it. That's like, you know, there are other people that, because the job circumstances have changed, they're getting more money. Some that are getting certifications and things of that nature. You're still going to give them the increase on what their base salary will. If you don't, you're not giving them an increase. I mean, I can see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And I understand that you feel like that this raise, this longevity raise, is supposed to be in lieu of raises. I don't think I took it to be that when it was
That's what I
talked.
thought, so,
Obviously, maybe I'm in the minority. Mayor, what's your thoughts?
That was passed before I took office. And so,
Well,
what the internal discussions were at that time, I don't know what each person's understanding was. I do know that the sheriff's department was given the longevity increase scale and no one else was. But I thought it was kind of understood that that was just base, and if you do across the board 2.5, then the sheriff's department is eligible for the work. If the committee feels like that's not right, well, then you can make a motion to take it out.
I have a question. The longevity is 2 years, 5 years, or certain another step on 10 years or something, or is that just?
It goes up to 5 years.
Okay.
And the reason we put that in there is because we have so many officers leave
Yeah.
and go to other agencies. This right here was set up the same pay scale as Red Ball Spring.
Right.
This was the same, I copied their scale.
So when they retire, that they can kind of consider.
And they also-
part of the package when they.
Yeah, that's right.
so how many officers do you have that's under the longevity scale? It should be too low for the office.
Most all of them are under the scale. Because all of
Most
them,
all of them more or less retired.
that's right, most of them have.
Like just the longevity, they kept the officer, instead of losing the buses, it happened to keep them now.
Yeah, it's got a lot to keep them on force here.
Mr. Wallace,
The 2.5 is a COLA, cost of living raise, correct?
that was our intent.
Which is totally separate from longevity and needs to be kept separate. Next year, there might not be a COLA raise, and the following year might not be another one, so I have no issue with the 2.5 and with longevity.
That's basically my understanding of what we were doing when we put it in there. It has to do with service and amount of time of service, so that those people, when they're hired on, they know at this period of time, they're automatically going to that, and it's not subject to the economy or the whims, it's already based in there.
Because it's a 2.5 COLA for every Trousdale County Hartsville employee, correct?
That was our intent.
And can I go a little bit further on that, Commissioner Wallace? Where that 2.5% came from, that is the official Fed inflation rate from January 2019 to January 2020. So that was to adjust for inflation during that year. And as you said, it's a cost of living adjustment. That's what we included it in there. And every department, even the ones that initially had wanted to give more than that, I have got them to only do the 2.5% increase that was issued by the Fed as the inflation rate. So,
Anybody else? I think we're dealing with two separate issues that are both in one line item category. Is that kind of the consensus of what we come to on this? Everybody understand and comfortable at first?
You get it after 2 years and 5 years, is that right? Is it stop at 5?
When you're hired on, like a deputy hired on, he starts out at a base rate. Then after he goes through the academy, which might be a year later, he gets a $1 an hour raise. And then after 2 years, he gets another $1. And after 5 years, he gets another $1.
And that's when it stops.
And that's when it stops. But you still get your increases, like your 2.5 in there too. If we don't give them a raise, we're gonna be right back where we were 10 years ago. Nobody gets that. You know, once you top out, that's it. You'll never get no raise.
Yeah, for every 50 cents in a raise you get on average for a full-time 40-hour work week, it's going to get reported. It averages out to about $1,000 for us. Dollar rate, $2,000, year 5 a week.
And I've still got most of my department been there less than 5 years.
Well, it's nice to have a force that's been here for a while.
And that's what I'm trying to do, try to get people to stay around where we have people. When I was growing up, the officers here, I knew them all, they were there for 20, 30 years. And now it's just different, where Hartsville Police Department was one of the highest police departments in the state sometimes. Had better benefits than anybody. Everybody stuck around, but when you don't pay your people and don't keep your benefits up, they're nowhere else going. And that's what's happened. I figured up one day not long ago, I got 19 officers that work for me that started here and work at other agencies now.
I would also like to point out that this is also the 27 pay period included in this as well, which will not happen again for another 11 years.
I'm really having a hard time. That one should be working.
I said I'd also like to point out that this includes the 27 pay periods, which only happens this fiscal year, won't happen again for another 11 years.
Any other questions for Sheriff? Mr. Butler?
I just wanted to ask, something was actually, kind of struck me as odd, asked the sheriff to tell me, how many of your officers, patrol officers, don't live in the county anymore?
Half of them.
10 years ago, how many didn't live in the county?
About all of them here. I can't get anybody here to take the job. I'm having to hire people outside the county. I'm trying to recruit our own people here, nobody will do it, nobody wants to do it.
So even at the pay scale we got now, it's still difficult to get
It's
off.
hard to get them. But, you know, we got other agencies that are, a lot of officers work here, more officers living in Trousdale County work at other agencies that move back. We got Metro, Lebanon, Galveston. If you drive around the county, out the city, you'll see one. There's one of them by your house, 11 police department cars.
Well, that's what was odd. There's most of our officers work in other counties and they're sitting around here with 11 and Gallatin, whatever, police cars sitting in their driveways. We're having our people that live 30 miles away and they're willing to drive here to work. We need to try and keep them, but we're really going to be in trouble.
It makes a difference. You got somebody who grew up here and lived here all their life and know everybody, they know the community, they know the roads. And I hire somebody that you have to learn everybody, learn it. It's hard.
Mr. Tingley?
I have a question for you. You did make a chief assessment, on the top of us, you got, now, you don't pay that, the operator, but the county. How much does it cost to get a new come in the county? Does it cost more than the 2.5%?
for
training.
You talking about training an officer? Once you hire an officer, you gotta go through school for 12 weeks. And you just don't hire him, he gets to go right to you. Usually there's a class already going on. You gotta wait till that class is up. Luckily, that next class is not full. Sometimes it's full, but you have to wait another. It can be 24 weeks for your being in school, and you have to go for another 12 months. And he has to ride with an officer, he can't get in the car and drive by himself, and control himself like we used to. He has to ride with a supervisor all that time. Then he after he gets out of the academy, we have to go through a FPO program, he lasts a month or so, make sure he's ready to go on his own. So a lot of times, you've got a year in a man where he gets to know. And you pay him to go to school, you pay for all his equipment, pay the salary. It probably costs $30,000 to put him in school right now. Before he gets married.
Do you have a big turnover or do you?
Not right now, at one time we did. But I think the longevity and our pay raise we got here in the past, has got us up to where we're equal with a lot of the counties around us. We're never gonna be the same as Gallatin, Lebanon, Wilson County, we're never gonna be where they're at. But we're kind of staying with Smith County, Red Ball Springs, Lebanon, Lafayette, we're kind of staying even with them. It's not very much difference in this now.
One question. It's better to pay 2.5% over or whatever, that straight line, and that may keep you off the bill, I think you same way.
That's right. 4 years ago, I had 6 offers with 2 months. Went somewhere else.
It's a lot of money.
Mr. Parker, recommend.
It's moved to approve the sheriff's department budget as presented.
Have a motion and a second to approve the budget, and that was with the one correction of addition of $5,000.
Yes.
Okay, which would make the total budget request $1,611,140. Is my math correct? Okay. All right. Anybody want to discuss that? No? Yes.
How many officers are you short?
Right now, we've got one short. And see, the academy's closed right now. They had a class in there whenever the pandemic started, they shut down everything. Whenever we do start back, this class is gonna go back and finish. And luckily, right now, the school's out, they're using SROs to fill in. They've got this out a lot. And I'm probably gonna go for 6 months longer, hiring somebody in that slot. What money we get in a raise this year, that slot will probably cover.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Anyone like to change their mind? Ayes have it. We'll move on to the next category, which is drug enforcement. I don't remember, Mayor, did you cover that the other night?
I don't remember if I did, but if I did, I think it's the same as it usually is.
Yeah, it's basically the same, only difference is the 2.5 proposal.
Okay. I know, I think we mentioned administration or sexual offender registry was exactly the same. Get into the jail, if you'd like to get into the jail, Sheriff. I know you'd like to stay over the jail, so go ahead and get into the jail.
Yeah. All that's pretty much basically the same as it was last year. We got the lights put in. It looks real good. We painted in the back of the jail. That's the only good thing that came out of what's happening here. Like they've got our numbers down. We're still running 60 in the jail. I've been running in the low 30s. We were able to go in there and clean up the jail, and it looks a lot better than it did. Some of the cells we ain't painted almost 40 years. Because we had nowhere to move it to. We got our lights in. I put in some more mattresses. All our mattresses are in bad shape. We replaced some of them, but I didn't have enough money in the budget to here to them all. So I put some money in there for it and some uniforms for the prisoners. I also also put in for food service equipment, I put in for a dishwasher, commercial dishwasher for the jail. That's basically it this year, anything different.
I have one question, Mayor. Do you think there's any of these items that could be covered in that possible grant money coming from the state?
I don't believe the mattresses and the dishwashing equipment qualifies.
I thought possibly the dishwasher might, but just wondering.
I don't believe so. I think it'd be more like, the radios, vests, vehicles, those kind of things. I don't think the dishwasher would qualify.
Any other questions about the jail budget?
One question.
Yes,
So
sir.
I'm here at the guards, I see that 558 to 585, 558,585,000. Is that just based off of the percent raise, or what's the reason that we increase it? That's probably okay. $15,000 to be paid.
That's maybe to cover, shifts and, if you can.
It's the 2.5, 27 pay periods, and then also if we put the funds in here, we can move it. I'll give you one example that we would possibly use it for. Until we had the coronavirus pandemic, we were seeing astronomical increases in food supplies because we were so overcrowded. If you had this in there, you just do a line item of adjustment and move it from one line item to the other without having to do a budget amendment, pull from fund balance.
To add to that question, you mentioned again the 27 pay periods. As I'm sitting here, where does that 27 pay periods, how much is that 27 pay periods in this number?
In this particular number, I don't know exactly. I do know Mr. Clarity asked that on Monday about kind of overall how much does that add. I believe Ms. Thomas said it adds about $100,000 to the budget. So next year you'll see $100,000 labor decrease across the entire 101 fund.
Roughly 110, I figured it up, right? 170,000 pay period. Sorry. No. I asked Ms. Thomas the other day, she sent me some information on our budget, roughly monthly budget, gross outgoing in the county is right at $170,000 for our outgoing pay. And we figure that in on the 2.5%, it's about $110,000 is what you're looking at cost per month. Per week, I apologize. For a year pay period. That's per pay period. One pay period, 1 month's pay period is $170,000.
Guards do have that.
I apologize, that was not 1 month pay period, if I read it incorrectly, that was 2 weeks pay period, that's correct.
There's 16 now.
2 weeks. Perfect, that's correct. I spoke, I knew what I was saying, so I read it. We heard it. Roughly, we're looking at $110,000 we're talking about next year off the 27 pay period. I'm just trying to figure out how do I look at that number and figure out where that number, that 27 pay period is affecting our budget. I don't see a way to figure it in right here.
Well, we could show that, but we know that it's there, we know it's built into it. So, we did try to calculate it out in here for single category. And the question would come up, how much does that amount to? We felt like how much it amounted across the board is what most people would be concerned with, not every single department. But we can go back and do that.
Just as I'm looking at the numbers, I think it's hard to adjust that, because that's why we've got that cost we're talking about there, $110,000 roughly for that extra week. I'm sorry, that was for the 2.5% raise. It's $170,000 for that 2 week. $170,000 for that extra week, or across the whole board. That's the issue. I got off on 2.5%.
Any other questions about the jail building? Y'all good with the mayor? Mayor, you good with this budget for the jail?
Yes, sir. Unless there's any other questions.
Ms. Rachel? We have a motion to approve the jail budget as stated. Have a second, second by Ms. Park. Motion and second to approve the jail portion of the budget. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Workhouse, Sheriff. Talk about the workhouse bid.
Yeah, the workhouse, basically, like I said, the same as last year. The only increase I've had to put in there recently, $10,000, I just put in there, y'all probably won't have it. One of our work crew vehicles is 19-year-old vehicle, one Darren Griffin drives. The transmission is going out of it. We paid $5,000 for it about 10 years ago. And it's just pretty much shot. So I'm requesting to add another 10 after that. I went to the state surplus yesterday, looked at some used vehicles down there, and they range anywhere from $7,000 to $12,000. And we're trying to get a nice vehicle, decent vehicle for them. Some of them are old game worn trucks, they're wrecked and beat up pretty bad, and try to get something half decent.
So what you're asking us to do is add another $10,000 under motor vehicle?
Motor vehicle.
Sir?
Motor vehicle, that's correct. Add to that. And the truck that we've got, will probably just needs to be surplus and probably scrapped out. We took 2 trucks 2 years ago and made one out of it pretty much. We put the beds and the steering column and the seats, and they're the same vehicle, just a few years different. We just swap them around, take parts off one, make one. But it's pretty much, it's gonna cost more to fix it. It's worth front end about out of it. A-frames all around it.
Mayor, your thoughts?
We have a lot of vehicles that are aging out, and I think eventually we're gonna have to replace them, and we're gonna just keep stacking up maintenance costs if we don't. I think we'll get to a point where it was cheaper just to get a newer vehicle and keep those money in the one, we're just gonna have to continuously repair it.
Yeah, this vehicle's a 2001 model, we want to replace pretty much. It's gone.
I believe he's gonna, you're looking at replacing with a used vehicle from the state surplus, and not a new vehicle. So
State surplus. Right now, they've got a green and everything down there, so we'll work to see anything right now. Hopefully they'll open that back up through the agencies around here pretty soon.
That the one you're looking at buying.
Well, we looked at some, they range anywhere from 80,000 to 130,000.
3/4 ton,
Yeah, 3/4 ton, 4-wheel drive, most of them are Fords they've got. They're going forward most of them. And some GMC Chevrolets, what they got down there. I think that truck Darren's got 200,000 on it. Something like that. They bought it, like I say, about 2 years ago. We had like 5,000 for it too. We better use that. I hope so.
I know we've had discussions about before whether it's cost effective to buy used vehicles or to go ahead and buy new vehicles and have them for a longer period of time. And the thing that has always been the biggest determining factor that I recall was how much it's going to be used. You know, how much is it in service? Is it used occasionally? Is it something that has to be used every day, that if it broke down, you could do without it long enough to fix it? And that's kind of been the criteria that we've looked at in times past with whether to go used or whether to go new. I appreciate you asking to buy a used one instead of a new one, but I certainly don't know if this is one of those circumstances where we should be looking at buying a new one or a used one will be fine, but that's your decision. That's what you're presenting, so I just wanted to point out that that's kind of been the criteria that we looked at in times past, whether to buy used or buy new.
How much longer is that one lag?
We got it, I think 2 years ago, maybe 3. Yeah, we hope so. It's still a good truck. They take good care of them. Most times, Larry and Darren, they change the oil themselves. They make a lot of maintenance to them themselves. And, they keep them up good. I know one Darren uses, every time he fills it up, he has to pour oil in it. And that kept the transmission's gone on it. It's pretty much shot. We patch on, and we took parts off old patrol cars and put on. Them old Crown Vic cars we had about 10 of them out in the warehouse at TBA. We pull parts off and switch them over. They have the same parts as the trucks. And we pull parts off them and swap them out to each other, intakes, steering columns, and do it all the time, pulling the parts off and I'm trying to keep them going.
Yeah.
Sheriff, you asked for $10,000 for this motor vehicle. Would you have any idea of maybe taking that $10,000 out and maybe getting a price on a vehicle with a big utility bed on it?
Yeah, the
Sheriff
ones,
can use instead of just a pickup truck?
yeah, the ones I looked at don't have utility bed, they're just standard pickup trucks.
Talking about new one.
I haven't priced it yet.
If you took this $10,000 out tonight, would you have enough time to price it before Monday? Monday evening, you can come back?
I might be able to, I have to check and see. Yeah. Usually we do our state grant right now is through Florida Murfreesboro. That's who we do our bids with, state bid through right now. I'd have to check with them.
Probably welcome to 30,000 for that.
I have no idea. And they're about to be working with it before it's all reviewed.
That'll be cool.
You want help? Yes.
Mayor, that money that you got from the state, would any of that qualify for a new vehicle for that work group?
It may. Ultimately, you gotta file an application, it's up to the state to tell you yes or no.
Right.
I think they're more intended for like patrol vehicles and that whatnot. The only thing you can do is ask, if they tell you no, you can put something else.
We're patrolling trash. Clean it up.
It's hard, yeah, it's hard to count.
Yeah.
What's will of body? Ms. Walsh,
Make a motion to the courthouse budget with the $10,000 added.
motion to approve the budget for cows. And second, by Commissioner Johnson, that would be $100,942 with $10,000 added in motor vehicles. Certainly, if we see that we could possibly use this, some of the grant money for this, we can always make the decision at a later time to end the budget up, or to OW truck, or to even use it for it. But right now, that would be through the budget process. Any other discussion? Have a motion to approve it, and if you second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Does carry. Next is juvenile services. Mayor, that you would share.
That's actually under the General Sessions Court. It's the youth service officer for the General Sessions Court, so most of the expenses stay almost exactly the same. The only difference is the 2.5% increase.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Any questions on it? Seeing none, we'll move on. Anything else for the sheriff right now?
I think the only other part for the sheriff would be in the urban services fund.
We want to go and skip to that at this time. What do you think? And while we've got the sheriff on the board, we might as well read
Urban services is very bad.
very bad, and I'm trying to find a page. Give us just a second here. 272 on urban services fund. This is the 111, 54, 110 fund, public safety sheriff department. Sheriff, you have it.
One thing that was changed this year was, decided to pull out the records clerk and move it to general services. So it lowered that part of the budget, for that salary.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I got to increase here is, the bulletproof vest that we're talking about, the radios, in the vehicles that's in the urban service budget. And that's the only difference I got from last year.
There again, hopefully the grant monies will cover the bulletproof vest and some of those things. We don't know. They promised it to us, they give us, a long list of what we can't use for and short list of what we can, and the short list keep changing. I don't know how else to put it.
Ultimately, you guys submit it for approval, and it's kind of up to the approval authority as to what they're going to fund. But, so you have to give a description and a budget for what you want to use it for. But I do think, given the words they use and how it's written, I do think these law enforcement certain things such as vehicles or bulletproof vests, I do think that's kind of what it was intended to pay for.
Is there a term on that, fund? Time for us to turn it over?
We have to submit an application to spend those funds by April 30th of 2021. Anything that has not been approved at that time has to be turned back over to the state. We have until June 30th of 2023 to spend it.
It's not anything that's in the next week, month, down the line.
How many officers are planned for?
That is 4, 3. How many officers is out of this budget?
Okay, I think there's 4. Is that right, Amy, since we?
White, Chinese.
And, there's 2 out of 6 dispatchers.
The thing on these deputy salaries, it was some of the higher paid people in the sheriff's department that come out of this because they were all employees of the city.
No, there's one of them.
Okay. Well, one or 2 of them. Is that right?
Yeah.
Again, a little bit. Mayor, anything to say on this budget?
No, sir?
Any questions? Any more questions? Is everybody good with this? Want to do a motion? For consensus of the rest? Communication. Ms. Raker. Motion to approve the 111, 54, 110 budget for the sheriff's department. Have a second by Mr. Walsh. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It does carry. Okay. Was there anything else for the sheriff? Mayor?
No, I believe it's
Then on the letter side. if you haven't rearranged your package, you had the big pages in the front, then you go to letter pages. It's the first set of letter side pages, and it'll be the second piece of paper in these. Not long ways up and down. Drug fund, drug enforcement. Are there any significant changes in it? It looks like there is. Some equipment in it. What was the equipment?
This is all, this is,
It's your county drug fund.
I only have my copy of that here. The way we always do this, the only thing we can do with this money is buy equipment, non-recurring, and use it for drug investigations. And we always budget an amount. For instance, in the past, we bought trailers, we got a car hauler, we use the seizures instead of calling a record, we tow it ourselves a lot of times and remove them. And we got equipment we buy for training. Well, we always budget them out throughout the year for no special reasons right now, anything we need. But things that does come up that we need, we always purchase through this. And that keeps having taxpayers that pay for this.
I guess the big question is why did it jump from 45,000 to 65,000?
That's the whole amount we've got budgeted. That's how much we got in there. I always budget for the amount. We bought a dog out of it, a drug dog.
So it's an accumulating fund?
It's accumulated fund, and we use it to buy, just like we bought the dog with it, and pay for training, equipment. And this money is generated mostly through seizures, and court fines, and that's how it's generated.
Mayor?
That's just, like you said, it's generated by the fines and forfeitures and everything from the criminal investigations, and that's what they have to use it for.
There's no county money.
No, this is all seized money from equipment and stuff that we seized and sold at auction.
Anyone have any questions about it, see any problem with it, ask Steve now. Okay, everybody understand that? Okay. Anything else for the sheriff?
I believe that's it.
Thank you, Sheriff. Go ahead and go ahead. Yes, sir. Let's take about a 5-minute break while we're getting ready for our next victim. Dr. Satterfield, you can assume the position. Y'all need to sit right there. Get scratched.
Well, he's got it warm for you.
Hey, we gonna be good.
That's right. That's
We just got some hamburgers.
I'm scared too, when you look at them.
At least you got it all good.
You know what I'm saying? I appreciate it. I'll make sure. I think it's oh my
Hey, you know
Oh, yeah. When we had it last year, I thought, myself, I didn't say that to nobody else. I thought, this won't never last. We get paid. I might sit down at the curb. Anybody knows the
Hey, take care of the numbers first.
I've got the copy in today. The whole thing here in there too.
We already got the budget. This is your turn. No, last year was your one. This is your two. Last 2 years, you street. That was FY. That's FY. Sales comes out. But you still got the straight. This year, I'm like 3. So if you won't go, no, let's start camping. I'm just saying, I'm telling you, it's really showing me reason why.
I tried. 10 minutes of talking, we shot about 20 seconds. There you go. Glad he figured out that they take a radio. I used to sit around and look off down, and I would do that. They know my vehicle out there now. I can drive. If I want to, I can drive. They'll see who it is. They'll come running and come down and figure out. But I don't get nowhere here. Because I get called over there. I was spraying the other day, found a shake.
Okay, everybody, let's get back to it, please.
Now, Ray asked him on text Ray if he wanted it, and he didn't want it. Next time we have our prison oversight meeting, we'll give it to the board.
let's get started, please. Everybody take a seat. Okay.
Make sure you put the phone on silent when you start mixing.
How do you do that? Okay. Dr. Stats, you ready?
Yes, sir, I'm going to
Okay, everybody get the packet that he passed out. How did we lose so many people? Golly, you think it's a bunch of y'all women or something? I'm sorry, a bunch of old men. Okay.
Good evening. It's always good when you see the handout that you pass out. It says a notable request and the schools is not on it. So that's a good sign to start. But before you have our preliminary 141 school budget. And I'd like to put a disclaimer on this early. If you look at the top, it says this is a draft and it is contingent upon board approval on May the 14th. So the budget that we submitted in April was just a very, very rough budget. We did not have a BEP estimate at that time. We had not tried to actualize F20 at that time. So if you've seen this budget is much closer resembles what our actual budget would look like. There are a few things in there that's different that the board will have to approve before we can get it to you. But if everything runs well, I think we can get this to you a week from tomorrow and we'll be ready to roll. If you look at the first 3 pages, those are the revenue pages. We spent some time, that's Angie Williams and Amy and the mayor and Chairman Jewell together going through these revenues today. We went through each line item pretty well and agreed that those were good, solid revenue figures in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. The only difference that we have there is the top line county property tax. That number is $1,478,378, and that includes the current tax rate at the value of a penny and $40,000 plus $40,000 that represents the 2.5% raise to all non-certified personnel. And if you look at that figure is only about $7,600 more than what we're in line to collect from current property tax this year. Like the sheriff talked about a few minutes ago, this is pretty much a status quo budget for us. The only difference is the $40,000 for the non-certified raises of 2.5%. It shows reflects a 2% raise for certified personnel that is coming from the state BEP. That's reflected in there. The only changes there, if I can, this microphone is not good.
On the local option sales tax, we estimated that down. I think we decided or come up with that we cannot lower it below 638.
Okay.
Also called the statutory. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes, sir, after having our meeting earlier today, Ms. Amy went back and looked at some figures, and we think that it needs to go up to 638, so we can't go below that.
So instead of where you're showing 630 in blue blue, that definitely needs to change to 638.
We can do that.
Everybody see that on the first page, that middle page? There again, we were trying to estimate the sales tax collections down about 10%. But there's statutory requirements, you can't drop it below what it was in previous years. And that's where the 638 comes into play.
There was only two things before we get to the last page. On page 7, other student support, 72,130,309. I think that's highlighted in yellow. Contracts with other government agencies. That is where our SROs rest, and the sheriff has addressed that issue this evening. Y'all have addressed that, so that's why that's highlighted, and that's already been covered this evening. The only other change to this budget for which I would need to discuss with the Board of Education is going to be, that's different from where we were last month.
Page 9.
Page, is that right? 7, 8. Yes, I thought I had that highlighted. Is that highlighted in yellow for you?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not, okay, I missed that. Is the audio visual, this is a position that I'm going to recommend to the board that we add to our budget, but not hire this position. In the midst of COVID-19, we don't know what schools are going to look like next year, whether we're going to start on time. Is it going to be like we presently are now, or is it going to be some type of staggered schedules? But one of the things that we were trying to do is try to work with our digital learning so that our students can take their Chromebooks home with them. We know there'll be more breakage, repair, and support. We only have one technology person in the whole district to manage that. So we're just looking for, that's funded at an educational assistant salary. And again, I want to discuss that with the board. And again, I would not recommend that we hire somebody until we found out what the challenge that we're up against.
That you absolutely need.
Exactly.
You have to go in that direction.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just like this clause, it might be an overlooked typo, but the very top of every page, it says for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018. Very top of the page of every page, fourth line.
Yeah, yes, that is a typo. Yes, that's a good catch. We can, 21. Yeah, we can change it. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Goodwin. Just make sure that 136 auto visual personnel, you're hoping to be able to hire, if need be, an aide for Andy, I think is what I understood there.
Yes, sir.
At that kind of salary.
That's what our EAs make. And again, we wouldn't want to hire this person at the very first day of school, so it might be like later on in the year at most. So obviously that's a conservative figure for us, but yeah, I mean, we're trying to.
To me, I was thinking you already get an individual in the technology field that for close to that price myself.
Well, yes, I understand, and you know, the board may want to change that when they get a hold of it, is what I'm saying. I've just penciled that in myself, but again, I need, some board feedback on that. I hear what you're saying.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I had the same thing.
Yeah, mine.
But I assumed it was somebody to be supplemental in their job, or they had other job duties and they were doing this as part of their job, and that part of it came out.
We just don't know what the future's going to look like, but
Or maybe retired teachers that came back in to assume that position, something like that. But, all right, question.
I do want to go to the last page.
Let's go, let's completely go through the revenue side. We kind of got, down to local option sales taxes and then skipped over into the others. I'd like for us to at least finish the revenue part, because that's the main thing that we're concerned with here. It's up to us to source your revenue, how you spend it, your business. We want to know, we need to look at it, we need to approve it. But as far as how you run your schools, that's up to you. It's up to us to try to fund it. And if I have that wrong, somebody kill me. Okay?
You're spot on.
Okay? All right, let's start. Total taxes, we're looking at $2,419,676 is what we're projecting. And then there's a few other small things that come in, some grants, some recurring grants and things of that nature. If you get on to page 2, you want to pick it up right there.
Page 2, we were discussing today, lease and rentals. Those are like, where they use the school facility. Those are rentals that they do. A lot of times that's flow through money. I mean, indirectly they're using our electricity, our water, our garbage, get bag liners, and we're also paying the janitor that stays with them during those hours. So that's pretty much flow through money. The next 144, 146, that is E-rate money. That's federal money that comes in on a rebate, and that's usually applied to our internet service that we pay each month. Is applied to that. Damages from recovered individuals. No, we don't have any there. Okay. Look, Mr. Joe asked today about what is contributions and gifts. That is our unemployment consortium. That is U-Trust, and that's actually, they give it back, a certain amount of that back every year. It's like a dividend payment because, we're in that consortium there. We estimate that to be $8,000, and then we turn around and use that money. We make a donation to the Imagination Library here in town. This is money that we've used to work on our books and nights bus, and it's also money that we've used out in the schools. We've allotted to the schools for the student incentives that we use at the schools. They make a choice on how they spend those funds. So that's where that money comes from. Then that moves down to the state funds, and the biggest revenue source is 46,511, which is the Basic Education Program, or the BEP. That allocation is $8,023,000, and you can quickly look at that. That's up about $300,000 from the prior year. However, remember there was a 2% raise for all certified employees, and that runs that up with fixed charges a little bit more than $200,000, leaving us about $90,000 left. But if you look at the BEP, and I did not bring a copy of that, I understand that y'all do get a copy of that somehow. The difference is growth funds that we're showing 49 more students in the BEP calculation in FY21 than we did in FY20. So that makes up, that's pretty much the difference there. So flow through money and growth funds on that. I can't think of anything else.
That's pretty much
Chairman.
that. Page 3, there's really just basically your total estimate on revenues, and then your restricted funds. You might want to explain that last little bit on page 3.
Yes, the reserve account starting with 43,555 and going down for the next 1, 2, 3 line items are not calculations in the spreadsheet at all. It's just there to for you to see those reserve accounts. The first one, it says reserve for LEAPS. This is the after-school program that they charge tuition to people who can pay the tuition, and then they put that in a reserve account, and they use that to hire extra people to support those children. The 462 to 15. No, excuse me, I'm looking at actualized numbers. Let me go over to the right-hand column. So the 1,173,738, that is the money that it would take to prop up our budget this year. So that's the money that's coming out of fund balance. And so with those two figures and the LEAPS money, it's the 1,186,000 that would come from unassigned fund balance to prop up the budget. But 12,262 is reserved LEAPS money. So the amount that you really have to use to prop up the budget is 1,173,738. That will move you right to the back page. And you can see that the estimated fund balance for FY19 is 3.9 million. That is the actualized number. The middle column, FY20, is the fund balance that we think that we'll be very close to when we close our books out in July at 3.0 million. And then we'll have to take the 1.2 million to prop up the budget, leaving us with an estimated $1.8 million fund balance on June 30, 2021. So as you can see, that fund balance is dropping. We have to use those reserve funds, those fund balance funds, to prop that up. And this is something that we've talked about for a number of years. So you just need to be aware of that. And this budget reflects a 2.5% raise for non-certified personnel, a 2% raise for certified personnel that comes from the DEP, and a 7% increase in health insurance for all of our employees. And then the other technology position. So those are the only things that are new or different in this budget from last year.
Okay, I do know that we have been promised some additional education funds from the state. They will be much like what we're dealing with, being a grant type situation. What are your intentions with that money that has been touted around at what, 292,000?
I think it's 238.
238, okay.
Yes. First of all, that we have conference calls with the state every week. The application has not been made available yet. We think that'll be a couple more weeks before that comes out. They are giving us guidance along the way. And again, those are federal funds. They're not, those funds would never fit in this budget, is what I'm saying, because they're.
Well, I guess, much like ours, I didn't know whether some of these things that are in your budget could be reallocated to that money and used by that money.
Yeah, I was coming to that.
Okay.
The guidance that we've been provided, what I've heard, is there's basically three things that we can use it for. That we can use it for learning loss recovery. So students who have been out of school for this COVID-19 time, if we were able to have social distancing and could have some type of summer school, we could use that for learning loss. The other bucket that would fit into is if you can use your funds to prevent learning loss in the future, such as digital and distance learning, such as those Chromebooks and supporting that. you know, maybe that position that we're talking about could be, that might be justified.
Or a portion of it.
Or a portion of it, that's a good point. And then the only other thing that we've heard as far is, I know I've talked to the Valiant guy, Chris, back here, is, you know, doing this summer feeding, this feeding program that we're doing is really draining our reserve food service account. Because we get about $3 for every meal we serve, and normally we're feeding about 800 meals plus a day, and now since school's out, we're spending, you know, about feeding about 350. So our revenue is decreasing, and they tell us that we might be able to use these funds to help replenish that fund balance from food service that we're being drained from. So those are the three things that has been explained to me that's possible that we can use that money from. That's called CARES Act money, CARES Act.
And it was intended to supplant some of the costs that you were incurring because of this, is why they were doing it. And so they're not tied to actual things that you can document that was why or it's going there. And I think we understand most all the federal monies that we get have a lot of strings attached and a lot of loopholes. I hate to use that word, but that's the best word I can come up with. And, you know, we can't always use the word one. But I think it will help, maybe a few of the items in here, minor items, not anything major, but it may help us a great deal in trying to cover those things coming into next year.
Well, it will certainly help us in the technology line items and some education equipment line items. You know, if we're going to buy, we can buy those Chromebooks and some software that goes with those out of the CARES Act funds that would save us money in our present 141 budget.
Right.
So that's
what I would.
We could, like a shell game, we can, and we will slide that, is what I'm saying if we can.
Mr. Ford, I believe your name.
So that's not reflected in this budget here?
No, it's federal funds. It would be in a 143 budget.
That'll be one of those things that when and if we obtain it, it'll be a budget amendment to bring it in before it goes back out to. Ms. Ray.
The school bus that we're talking about in the past, do you see that as a necessity this year or?
The school bus?
School bus.
Yes, ma'am. We purchase a school bus per year. They have the bus normally runs, the year expiration is 15 years on a bus.
How about the extra route?
You're talking about possibly adding a route on Western Park.
Yes, that has not come to me in 8 months. You know, David Goffin does our transportation, and that has not been pressed. And so that's not reflected in any of my presentation tonight. Thank you. But what has is like doing some paving work. And in that capital outlay, I think we set aside $20,000 to that and the bus garage, that area there. He's looking at doing that. So we set aside $20,000 for paving, but we don't know what that looks like yet. But definitely some repair at the high school parking lot. That's been David's #1 concern, I think.
Okay. Mr. Dickey.
I have a question. The coronavirus, how did it affect the DEP? Did it change it, roll it, or increase?
Affect our students?
And the BEP?
Oh, the BP? It has an effect. That's a great question, Mr. Dickey, honestly, is how has the coronavirus affected the BEP funding? For this year, FY 21, the BEP is calculated from the numbers in the prior year. So that your student attendance, all that was calculated from numbers last year. Now, when this becomes a concern is next year, this time when they start calculating the BEP. Because we didn't go to school The BP is calculated on enrollments on months 2, 3, 6, and 7. And then we didn't get month 7 this year. I mean, we didn't want that. So the state is telling us that they're going to double month 6. And the last 2 months, 6 and 7, each one of them weighs 35% apiece. So it's the students that you have at the end of the year that matter. So, you know, if some students left or transferred, you know, that type of thing. And then the BP is heavily driven by sales tax revenue. So at this point, looking at the BP, nothing's really changed. But this time next year, it could be what you call a horse of another color, according to about what the economy is. But that's a great question.
And none of us have the crystal ball to know what that's going to be. But all we can do is try to make it work. I would like to point out that in the property tax dollar amount, 1478 that last year the school's portion of our property tax was 61.76. To keep it at the current rate and to add the $40,000 in for the additional raises for the non-certified personnel will bring that rate up. It's going to bring it up about $0.015 or a little over. So the school rate would jump to 63.34, meaning that we're going to have to take that $0.015 out of the tax rate on the 111 fund to make up for it. So your percentage or the percentage of your overall tax rate will be higher to get to that dollar figure that you're showing there. But it is not, it is the same except for the $40,000. Okay, am I making sense? Mayor, you may be able to explain that a lot better than me. I sure wish you tried.
I think that'd come from the 101, not the 111.
I'm sorry, 101, you're right.
You're basically, you would take 1.58 cents from the 101 and move it to the 141 to cover the $40,000 increase.
So what they would have got is what they got last year, and then added 40,000 to it to get to that dollar amount. That percentage rate, which was 61.76, is going to have to go up slightly, which means it's got to come from somewhere. If you're not going to increase the tax rate overall by that amount, we're going to have to get it from somewhere else. So it's going to come from the 101. Basically, it's going to come from your fund.
And I'm sorry, I'll go ahead and answer the question. I will point out that we do feel like we're sitting pretty well on the 101 fund with the revenue we see coming in. There are some projects coming down that will increase the property taxes to the county, such as the meat processing plant supposed to go in front of the planning commission this next Monday. There is a new gas station being proposed that will come in front of the planning commission on Monday that is larger, something like you'd see more in Lebanon or Gallatin at the intersection of Highway 25 and 231. And I've been contacted by a developer wanting to develop a piece of property, and if that does come to fruition, that should be a pretty good amount of increase in tax revenue there as well. So with the projects we see coming down, I do feel really good about our tax revenue in the future with the project, with the growth we see right now. With these new projects coming on by the end of this next fiscal year, I feel real good about our tax revenue there. I am concerned, like everybody else, on our sales tax revenue. However, I have been paying attention to that. As I said on Monday, a lot of the people are saying, well, we're going to lose tourism and hotel taxes. Well, we don't have those. We did see a significant increase. I've talked to the grocery stores, and plus we've had to start picking up their cardboard and everything twice a week instead of once a week. They have seen a significant increase in revenue month to month, or actually weekly, of about roughly $20,000. So there's going to be an increase in sales tax there. And with what we've seen in the past of the online sales tax bringing in, I think at one point it was 38% more than what we had brought in the year before. So I think we're sitting pretty well on our sales tax. Plus, I also point out, went to Walmart recently. I did not go in, I just drove by it. My wife and I did, as we were picking up some food for drive-through. The parking lot was full. I have a brother-in-law who works at a furniture store in another county. The first day they opened up, he said they were swinging and actually had to lock the door to keep people from coming in. So I'm hoping we're going to see more of that V-shaped recovery than the hockey stick some people have talked about, but I do feel good about where we sit on the tax revenue side. I feel we're in a much better position than some other counties are.
Thank you, Mayor. To get back to this, what I was trying to explain, we do not know exactly what a penny is going to bring in. This is estimated. We do not have that official value. So where we're projecting revenues based on the projection that Mr. Berg gave us, which has always been very close. But that's why we don't know. I can't tell you it'll be exactly $1.58 or $1.59 or 1.59, 1.58. Until we get that penny value, we still just really don't know where that's going to lay out. I just wanted you to be aware that his figures are based on the same monies, and the only additional money was coming from $40,000 to cover those things, which we indicated we wanted to do. And we have lowered the projections as much as we possibly can statutorily on the sales tax rate. So, where we're projecting getting into the fund balance quite a bit, we don't know. We just know that we can do this budget and get through the year. So, there are still some variables. So, this is preliminary, like for you just to take and look at it until the school board votes on it and presents us with an official budget. But the thing that we need to decide tonight, are we comfortable with the revenue side? Are we comfortable with the revenue projections that we have here? And if we say we are, then we need to also realize that we're ending up a little bit more. It's going to have to come out of our fund balance or some other part of our property tax rate to make this work. Is everybody, I feel like I didn't explain that very well. I hope I did. Mayor, you might.
Well, as you said, at this point, what it would be is you would be using the current penny value, which, as he said, is not the final penny value. If this were to be roughly it, you would take 1.58 pennies from the general 101 and move it over to the 141. So you're just allocating pennies to a different fund. Not require a tax increase or anything like this, and that's why I said we feel real good about our revenues in the future based on what we've seen recently. I would also point out something that was pointed out by the Comptroller's Office. The State General Assembly passed a change to the statute this year. It requires the county to go ahead and set the revenues for the schools to fix their budget. We are required to go ahead and approve their revenues and send it to them so they can fix their budget. So I would suggest that we pass that either tonight or Monday night because it is now a statutory requirement.
We may come back with the rate, the official rate. There's currently not official rate.
It's the
Certified rate may come back more. The penny would bring in more. If we do, that's going to help the schools with their deficit balance. It'll help us with our deficit, or not deficit, but where we're dipping into our fund balance, I guess I should say. So, but I would like for us, if we're comfortable with these revenue estimates, which we have poured over them, I think they're good numbers. I think we need to give them to the school board so they have those numbers to work with and can come back and give us a total budget. Ms. First.
Superintendent Satterfield, question for you. The 2.5% raise on the non-certified covers 100% of the non-certified, correct?
Yes, sir. All of our full-time positions. Now, if someone's just like doing bus duty in the afternoon, you know, that we didn't apply to that rate.
Now, the BEP funding from the state, 2%, does that cover 100% of the teachers or?
Licensed personnel.
Okay, because I know we've had some conversations in the past where the BEP money does not cover 100% of the salaries of the employees in the county here in Trousdale.
That's true. We have, and I've got that on a piece of paper. I think I can.
I just wanted to make sure that 100% of the certified were getting the 2%, or is it the 2%,
Yeah,
85%? You know what I'm
we
saying?
have, yes, we have to make that up. There's about, I think the BEP is paying roughly for 87.67 certified positions.
You got 13% roughly.
Yeah, and so we actually have 98 certified positions. So there's 10 other positions that we would have to stretch that.
To get that 100% coverage of 2%.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're doing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that figure is reflected in what we're getting, and that's also reflected in our percentage rate. You know, what we're putting into the school budget above BEP funding is 2 point,
It's about 280-something thousand, I believe.
on just salary.
Oh, I don't know.
On total, it was like 2, our match was 2 point.
Yeah, your match, your required match is $2,215,000. The last time I looked, and you can look at your local taxes, the last time I penciled that in was $2,496,878. So that's a difference of about $281,000 above what's required. Now, before the prison thing came in, that was better than $500,000. So that's been reduced, and that's been something we talked about in years past. But you had to use more once you was above the BEP to catch up with the BEP. But you met the local match, and you're $280-something thousand above the local match. But remember, B stands for basic, not better. Basic education program.
Fair deal.
Yes.
Any other questions about the revenue side of this? Mr. Clary, you have something else?
What do you consider non-certified?
Anyone who does not have a teaching license.
I mean, like cafeteria staff?
Yes, oh yeah, yeah.
Substitute teachers?
No, we don't add it, so we're talking about, because substitute teachers, you know, they don't have a fixed schedule, they're not permanently hired.
Right. They're like a contract employee.
Yeah,
They're paid a set rate.
so we didn't add it to substitute teacher rate. Now, if you're willing to do it, we're willing to go back and work on it now.
It would be your bus driver.
No, all our bus drivers
Okay.
are non-certified.
Cafeteria
Yes.
employees.
EAs.
Maintenance,
Custodians,
custodians.
What you consider full-time?
yes, yeah. Everyone that doesn't have a teaching license.
Nurses.
Nurses,
SRO.
SROs, they're paid through the sheriff's department, SROs.
Okay. Any more questions about this? Yes, sir, Ms. Ford.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve, second by Ms. Johnson. We're approving the revenue side. What we're approving to send to the school board so they have figures to come back with this budget. Okay? Mr. Gully, you have a question?
Yes, well, just make one on before we vote, and I know where we are. I think what, Mr. Ferguson might have been alluding to there a minute ago is your certified employees of the county, as I am, I understand that, are going to receive less than a 2% raise once it's maxed out.
No, that's not, no, we've calculated 2%.
That's my question. Why?
Yeah,
I want to make sure that didn't happen.
I thought that was your question as well. So you've calculated it in here so that it would be 2% for all 98.
We've calculated on those line items that it's 2%. So it's hard to explain. But it'll be on the salary schedule, you know, so based on years of experience and degrees is where that would fall. But we would add that 2% into the salary schedule.
I guess what he's getting at, are they getting 2% of the 80% that the state funds, or are they getting 2% of the 100% of their salary? Is that what you're trying to ask?
I think I understand what you're saying. Even when the,
I mean, am I wrong? Is that?
No, you're off where I was going.
Okay.
it's, the state gives us 2% in the instructional component of the DEP. 2% for the 87 point whatever teachers that they fund. So what we do is take the salary schedule and adjust it to 2%. And then wherever those teachers fall on years of experience and degrees, the salary schedule is adjusted 2%. Now, will he find exactly what he paid last year, what he made last year? To next year, will it be exactly 2%? I can't guarantee that would be a yes.
I was fixing to say, if that happened, it would be the first time it ever happened. Yes.
So where I tell you that these, our system runs off of incentive-based pay scale. Our teachers, many of them aren't on the regular salary scale that you're talking about in years scale. So when you added it there, all I'm asking is, are those teachers fixing to see an increase?
All of them will see some type of increase.
With that, is the question. That's the question for the school.
Making it aware here tonight. This is video, whereas the school is not.
We're going video.
My curiosity was, if you have a shortfall, where people say, well, the certified got 2%, when the BEP will fall short 13% on the funding of making it 100% across the board, like the non-certified are 100%, where would we make up that difference?
I can't.
Because it's really not 2%.
No, it's not. It never has been. It never has been.
I know, I'm pointing that out.
Right, it never has been. Every certified personnel will not see a 2%.
So then, in reality, when we talk about 2%, 2.5% cost of living increase, our certified teachers in this county are not getting a full-fledged cost of living increase, period.
Now, we would welcome the commission addressing that.
Well, I just wanted to point our attention, we don't want people going around town saying, well, the certified got 2%, well, they really didn't, because that's based upon BEP funding, and that didn't cover 100% of our.
Yeah, all of our.
If you will recall, they were going to get 4%. That was what was projected in the original budget from the governor, but COVID hit, and they cut that back from 4% to 2%. The state legislature did that. Now, if I'm wrong in that, somebody shoot me.
When you say that, you're saying that towards
that state legislature.
Our system and two other systems in the state of Tennessee run off of incentive-based pay.
I know.
So when you're saying today, those days aren't just teachers as well.
But
that's a fund that's there, not those teachers you get.
But
it goes to my wife. Yes, she's not in the incentive-based pay program. Yes, I know the differences here. Really well. Pretty good.
Sure. You more than anybody.
The incentive-based pay is a bonus. The baseline salary is what we're talking about addressing, is the baseline salary, which is a component of the whole strategic compensation model. But we're talking, the conversation we're having this evening is baseline pay.
Ms. Jackson.
But when you started, you said certified was going to get a 2% raise.
Yes, and Mr. Gully's exactly right.
But that's not what's happening.
No, it's not. He's exactly right. It's not a 2% raise. But the state, when they fund you, is not a 2% raise. It's a 2% increase to the instructional component line of the BEP. And then we apply that to the salary schedule. But all of our employees, all our certified employees will see a bump because that salary step and ladder has changed.
However, I do not see that as an issue that falls upon the school system. It's receiving the funding that it's receiving from the state, it's just not at 100%.
That's
In
correct.
terms of the 2%.
That's correct.
That would be something, would be a funding mechanism if you want to make it a pure 2%, some other revenue going to come from somewhere.
And they have talked about this at the state legislature
Every year.
every year, you know, and they can't figure out how to do it. I don't
And each-
understand, but they, we
And
can.
each governor has trouble with this. You know, they'll do a state of the union and say everybody's gonna get 2% or 4%, and it doesn't happen like that across the state of Tennessee. So it's not just.
They're increasing their funding 2%, but that doesn't necessarily dribble out to 2% to everybody. I don't know how else to do it.
All of our certified personnel will get a portion of that 2%.
How many that's not on the incentive pay?
All of the teachers will get some portion of that 2% because the salary scale will be increased.
Okay. Are we comfortable with the revenue side of this? I think we have a motion and a second.
Yes, we did.
Talking to you, y'all ready to vote on it? I am. We need to roll call on this. I don't think we do. Let's do hands on this. All in favor of approving this revenue side of the school budget, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. It does carry unanimously, Mr. Stafford.
Thank
You
you.
and the school board work your budget, and we look forward to.
Mr. Kelly, thank you for bringing that out. I see where you're going with that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. I see. I mean, really, that cleared that up. That's good. Thank you very much. I'm not vouching for it.
I'm not talking to you.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the other league.
Yeah, I hope it stands. Thank you. Thank all of you. Thank you very much.
I will point out that we've basically approved dollars, but we've not approved a percentage or a penny amount that the schools are getting until we know what our certified rate is, then we'll be able to know for sure. And then we'll get into those type of things when we're getting into the first and the second reading on the total budget as far as what percentage of the overall tax rate goes to what part of the budget. Okay? Mayor, where do you want to pick up now?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Bowman?
I'm not sure, is Mr. Gully allowed to vote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Just make one. The only thing I cannot vote on is a raise for myself, individually, me. I can vote on a raise for teachers as a whole, but I cannot vote on a raise for me myself. I've got the information well. I want to see guys and talk to them well to make sure. So I got that for you.
Just want to make sure.
I've done my research.
How does the teachers decide whether or not they're on the incentive pay or not?
That was something the school board got special permission from the state. They were trying to use it in pilot programs a few years ago. This is, I remember some. And we decided to participate in that. It has benefited some more than others, is all I can say.
If you're not on it, can you get on it now?
I can't answer that question.
Well, what's the question? I'm sorry.
On the incentive pay plan, if you're not on it now, can you get on it? I mean, if a teacher, say you have a new hire, are they automatic on the incentives?
Automatically. We only have one teacher in our district that's not on that.
Okay, but if they decided they want to, can they?
We do not have a door, we do not have a window to do that now. We originally allowed teachers to try for a year to see if they like it. After a year, they made a designation whether they wanted to go back on the traditional salary scale or whether they wanted to come to the new one. A few years ago, we actually opened that window up to like 19 or 20 teachers who were not, and we had all but one to join that at that time. So we only have one teacher in the entire district that's not on the strategic compensation model.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, where do you want to pick up?
Since we have Director Beatty here with me, I'd like for us to go to the 118 fund.
I think that's a great idea. What page is that on?
It says 172, it should kind of be
It's like the,
3/4 of the way through, I think. I'm looking at it on PDF, so it's on a different page than what you're looking at.
Yeah, that's a solid waste.
Yes, sir.
yeah, page 1 of 72 is at the very back of the first packet of legal size pages.
The page numbers are horrible, and I apologize for that. I realize it was good.
If you go to the first packet, the long pages, go to the very back of it, and come back 3 pages. And come back 3 pages. Is that where we need to be?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shoot.
If you look on the first page, this is our revenue projections. Year over year, what we budgeted, we went up roughly about $12,000 on county property taxes. Local option sales tax, the business tax, we did go down a little bit, that's just kind of to adjust down for what we were seeing at the time, plus also the decrease in economic activity that we were told to plan for. Patient charges have gone up, that's based on a trend we were seeing. We did go up 70,000 on that. Sale of property investment income, that's unknowable, so we got $25 in that. Homeland Security grant, those are just funds that come in throughout the year. We do budget amendments on those. Of course, we don't know if we're going to get those until we do, so there's nothing currently on that. So total revenue, we project $1,056,961. You can see that as a year-to-year increase. Any other questions on that? I'll go to the expenditures. Again, if you go to expenditures, of course, there's a 2.5% increase in the 27 pay periods. One of your big increases here is for maintenance and building. It should be the 335 maintenance repair building services for building. We went up from 2,500 to 22,500. This is because there was some water that got into the station, caused some mold damage in parts of it, and it's supposed to replace some carpets and other things that were damaged, so that would, we project maybe up to 22,500 to cover that. Another large increase as we go to, should be, you look down on this third page of that. The big item you're going to see is under medical equipment, 735. This is cots and radios for our ambulances, and I will let Director Beatty explain that line item.
So the 135 and change there is for new power cots that are battery powered, they lift themselves. You don't have to manually lift the cot up. And loaders that automatically load them into the ambulance also, so you don't have to lift the cot up by yourself and shove the cot into the ambulance. I got some studies I can send to you guys, or Amy may have, I don't know if we distributed those to you or not, but the average cost of a back injury is about $70,000, and I think we probably got a good example right now of an employee who's probably not going to come back to work for injuries he sustained at work. So this section is more of a mitigation step to try to keep our employees from getting hurt, keep them healthy, and not using workers' compensation.
Also a little easier, is it not a little easier on the patient itself or not?
It is, because the heavier you are, the harder we have to jerk you up. So if anybody's never lifted a cot with a 320-pound person on it before, you haven't lived yet. So it's a challenge for two people sometimes to try to pick them up and then try to get them into the
Last time they
ambulance.
loaded me in the ambulance, they said, "You know how much do you weigh?" And I told him, he said, oh.
Yeah, it's always an experience. We also have in there another additional cardiac monitor. And we got 2 right now, one for each frontline vehicle that we have in service in James. We'd like to add an additional 3rd one to when we put our 3rd ambulance in service on calls when the other 2 are busy, that we can run an LS ambulance instead of only having an AED. So that kind of limits our treatment modalities, and then we aren't using the other one. Supervisor will carry that additional monitor to first respond calls when necessary, and also if one should not function or break, we got one to replace it initially. Zoll will, the company we purchased through, will replace one while the one's being serviced, but it comes from Memphis, so it takes about a day for them to get it here. We really want to go the whole 24-hour period without having both trucks being ALS capability. Another portion of it is, they're called Lucas device. It's an automatic CPR device, so people in cardiac arrest, obviously we're not natural fire, we don't have a fire engine before people showing up with our ambulance on every call to help do these things. So out in the county, obviously you've got a longer response time to the facility. Well, this will actually lay the patient on this device and it wraps around them. It's kind of got a piston device that presses down on your chest. So it does chest compressions for you while you drive. So that allows one person to manage the airway, doesn't do medications and stuff, and that's safer because to do CPR you got to stand up. So stand up in the back of an ambulance going 70 miles an hour obviously is not ideal. So we try to mitigate that out of the scenario too. I think that wraps up that line item right there.
And the next one for other equipment, we did go up 2,000 on that, and that is for 3 computers for the ambulances, and I was asking if there's any further explanation for that.
Those are just the ambulances that we do our run tickets. I mean, ambulances, the tablets we do our run tickets on. So the ones we currently have are out of warranty and they're starting to break. They're couple $1,000 a piece, so the repairs on them are starting to add up to be more than what the price of the new computer will be just to replace them. And we'll put those in reserve, so when the front lines one should go down, they're functional, but they're just not something we want to keep using on a day-to-day operation.
The cots, the electric cots we're talking about, what's life expectancy on those? That's something you think would last 5 years, 10 years?
Oh yeah, I'd say at least 10 years. Yeah.
How long?
Probably 10 years, I would say, would be a nice estimate.
I will say, I think these 2 line items, these last 2 we covered, I think those are line items we could use those grant funds to pay for.
I know we had those on the list of the possible things. Medical equipment, cots, radios, ambulance was $135,000. So there again, if you take that out of this budget, you're back about where you were last year. Thanks, the increase. And I would say on this list, that's one of the few things that I feel very confident would be funded from.
I think if you look at what they put out and what the discussion was around that, I think anything related to first responders, I feel very confident about those getting put in there. And I think some of the IT things, if you're looking at that chart I put in, the upper chart is what I think we have a good shot of getting approved, and the lower chart is either I don't think it'll be approved or it's not worth submitting. So though that first chart I think comes out to a little over $462,000. So I'm hoping that there's a combination of those funds we've left over, plus some of these other items coming in cheaper than what we anticipated. We can expand that list and maybe purchase some other things while we've got those funds available.
Mr.
Ferguson?
Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Beatty, line item 2005-24, in-service and staff development. Can you kind of tell us what all that includes during the year, from the development staff, training?
Yeah, most of that goes to our online training program that we use called Target Solutions. So it gives us our hours to renew our license and our mandatory in-service time that the state requires for us to do. Since it's difficult to do an in-service, service-wide, because I have probably 3/4 of my service works another 24-hour shift somewhere else. I hate to force them to take a day off from another job during a vacation day to come sit and do an in-service. So this is the way to work around that. So the majority of that is that funded.
Did they catch that with some of the other services too? Being that they dual employees from another service, I mean, I'm sure they got the same requirements as other.
Yeah, some I would say do. Your small ones are usually the ones that run into that issue. But,
Any other questions, Mr. Hart?
Move to approve the ambulance service fund.
Have a motion to approve and second by Ms. Jackson. Johnson, Jones, you lady, what is your name? Johnson, right. Yes, okay. You can tell, I'm sorry, I'm tired. Have a motion by Mr. Hart and second by Ms. Jones to approve the ambulance budget. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is done.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it is now 8 o'clock, and given that I did not ask Mr. Salee to be here because I wasn't sure we'd get to his fund, plus we have some other funds available, I just like to end the budget presentation here and pick up on Monday.
I think we'll be able to wind it up on Monday, do you not?
Yes, sir. Really, I think the only funds available left are the 116, the urban services, the highway, and then the debt service funds, which are pretty kind of automatic. But I think we'll be able to get finished out on Monday.
Mr. Walsh, you recommend?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, stay here.
See, Dave, hey, I got mine.
Thanks, Mr. Davis.